Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town. Johnny Mac, how you feeling on this Football Friday? Two days out from the NFC title game, brother.
I can't get here soon enough. We'll finally get some clarity on some of these injuries, or at least where they're trending, and you can finally get to a football game. Seems like the Super Bowl's the worst, obviously, if you're going there with the extra week, but
right.
Starts to get paralysis by overanalysis. Eagles are the better team. If they bring their A game, they should win the football game. I've said from the start, I honestly believe they could win this football game if Kenny Pickett had to play. I think it's pretty. If I look at the 3 championship games, this will be the 3rd one in 8 years. They're the worst team the Eagles have played, and they won the other 2 by a combined 69-14. I'm not wavering. This is a better football team, and this is the game they should win, as long as they don't beat themselves.
Paralysis by overanalysis. I like that, Johnny Mac. But definitely a little bit of that when I sit here and talk about this game all day long, all week. This is the 1 week, John. That thing is going slower this week than ever for me. So I'm ready for this freaking game on Sunday. Eagles Commanders. John, we did a practice report last night. All right, and I don't know if everybody caught that, but for the people who did, they got a great update on the fly. Let's go back into that, though, because that's what everybody here on Birds 365 is also going to be waiting for, and that's the injury report from practice yesterday, John. Cam Jurgens missed practice again, and Dallas Goedert missed practice again. That's 2 straight days for those guys. Obviously, this team does a lot of rest during the week. What can you tell us about Cam Jurgens and Dallas Goedert, and then we'll get into Jalen Hurts and Quinyon Mitchell as well.
Well, I think it's pretty clear they're managing Dallas to the game. I'm pretty confident he's going to play. Cam, not as confident, probably more 50-50. And the only reason I'm 50-50 is because some of the players said they expected him to play. But,
right.
You see a lot of clips of Landon Dickerson saying that. But then that's the problem with clips. And then you don't hear the context. And a minute later he says, but I'm not a medical guy. Ask Nick, ask the trainers.
Right.
Nobody puts that clip up there. So I wouldn't take Dr. Dickerson's belief that Cam Jurgens is going to play as something other than what it is, and that he hopes his line mates and friend can get out there. But, from my perspective, if you're 100% confident Cam Jurgens is going to be out there, why are you wasting Landon Dickerson reps in center at practice? I don't know. There's something fishy about that. I think Nick said it's too early to tell. And maybe it is. Maybe they're telling the truth for once, and it's too early to tell. And maybe he'll be able to get out there. But I think there's a chance he won't be able to get out there. Number of reasons. I mentioned Cam Irving, veteran offensive lineman, 32-year-old guy. That's not the kind of guy you bring in this time of year, unless
right.
you need an insurance policy of a guy in a worst case situation can go out there and play. So, there's a lot of red flags when it comes to Cam Jurgens. Dallas, I don't think there's any doubt he's going to play. It's just a matter of how healthy is he. Same thing with Jalen Hurts, who's full participant yesterday. Same thing with Quinyon Mitchell, who's was a full participant yesterday.
Good stuff there. So we will see about how that plays out. Boy, I tell you what, John, Cam Jurgens misses that game. How big of a wrinkle does that throw? And you said it last night on our practice report in the evening. Yeah, Landon Dickerson's pretty damn good. So I don't know if you worry about that, but is there an element to, the protections and some of the other things the center does on the field outside of the physical nature of what they do that could have an impact here? I mean, if he moves to center and you put Steen in at left guard, I feel pretty good about that group still physically. and what they're going to be able to do. Does anything change with the way they communicate? Obviously it does, but how big of an impact could that have on the game?
Yeah, I don't think it'll change much from the standpoint of, and I don't want to dismiss a Pro Bowl center, and that's what Cam Jurgens is. But Landon is so good as a center. For those who don't know, he was a center in Alabama, All-American center.
Yep.
Would have been a first-round pick if he didn't tear his ACL as a center. It is very smart, very cerebral. So he can. I don't worry about him a little bit when it comes to calling out protections. Lane Johnson was joking. He even enjoys it. He likes being an orchestra leader. He said he's got the big, movements with his hands. He's getting everybody in. I don't worry about Landon Dickerson one bit. Changes a little bit from a style standpoint.
Right.
The big, as Lane called him, the strongest guy in the county. He's just a big physical guy versus Cam, who's more of the Jason Kelsey type athleticism. But I do worry about left guard because you have an second team All-Pro left guard who's not going to be there, and you're moving in Tyler Steen, who has played quite a bit, and he hadn't played well. So I see a lot of people, for whatever reason, that's a big drop off. So that would be my concern. Not center. My concern would be left guard.
So we'll see how that plays out there at left guard. And well, it is worth noting, John, with that change on the interior, potentially, we'll see. We don't know yet exactly what Cam Jurgens' status will be, but Washington's got a good interior of that D-line, John. They got good players in there, man. Jonathan Allen's playing back. He's back to playing good already. He has 8 pressures in 2 playoff games. They have Deron Payne, who's nursing an injury, but I would expect him to play this weekend. They got some good interior D linemen in there, John.
Yeah, but, the Eagles, again, there's a little I spoiled aspect to it. I mean, most people can't roll out 5 really top-tier offensive linemen, and most teams are dealing with. Look at Washington. They lost their best offensive lineman, Sam Cosmi, to a torn ACL, not playing. They got to deal with Jalen Carter without him. And Sam Cosmi, if you put him in Philadelphia's locker, is probably their 6th. He'd probably start today. He'd probably be starting Sunday as the replacement at left guard. So, you got to persevere through these things. And the Eagles have done it earlier in the season. You think about that Cincinnati game where Fred Johnson had to start and Tyler Steen had to start. And they won out and won in Cincinnati. So they've proven they can do it.
Good stuff. Josh B asked, how did Steen play this year when playing? It was passable, right? We all remember him stepping in, but
yeah, it wasn't great. I would say I know he got terrible grades from PFF, but I don't think he was terrible, but it wasn't great. A lot of moving around, mostly played at right guard for Becton. But no, it wasn't great. I would say Fred held up better. Fred was a little bit more serviceable if you're looking at the backup offensive lineman. Yeah, and he was particularly bad in pass protection. So I think that would be the issue.
Good stuff, everybody. Good stuff, Johnny Mack. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this morning. We're going to get into this game. We're going to have a great guest in hour number 2 in Les Bowen. All right, so Les Bowen will join us here in hour number 2. Looking forward to talking to Les when he joins in hour number 2. And I'll take some chats later on in the show. I do want to welcome and thank everybody for being here. Jimmy, good morning, man. How are you? James Jones is in here. Brandon Howard. Crowley's in here. Ish is in here. Josh B. What's going on, everybody? I appreciate all you guys. Macalia, what's up? I appreciate everybody in here. Don't forget to hit that like button for us if you're enjoying the content and have been enjoying Birds 365 all week and all year long. If you're one of those viewers, we appreciate you. And if you're watching after, we appreciate you for checking in. Don't forget to leave your comment down below, and I will try and read that and respond to you on the JAKIB channel. So we appreciate that. And if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to go and leave us a review. That's the best thing to do for a podcast listener to do to help us. So we appreciate that. Johnny Mack, let's get into Jalen Hurts. We talked a little bit about him last night. You said it was tough to tell because he was wearing big baggy sweatpants, so couldn't quite tell what you saw on the knee. But what do you know about Jalen Hurts and where we are? I feel like we're in a good spot. He was a full participant yesterday, and we kind of talked about we thought he'd be limited. So I thought that was optimistic. But your thoughts on Jalen Hurts and what do you know about where he is in his injury?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was purposeful that he was wearing those sort of baggy sweatpants. But if you watch practice, a lot of guys are wearing them. So, but I think it might have been a whole concerted effort to sort of hide what's going on with the knee a little bit. Obviously, he's going to wear something. Hopefully, it's only a compression sleeve. What we're trying to figure out, is it going to be one of those braces with the metal sort of supports, and that would indicate, a lack of, certainly lesser mobility than ever. But honestly, when I was there, and again, you're looking, I see him throwing the football for a little bit, and then a couple sort of drills where he's taking snaps from center, rolling out a little bit. And John Clark, our buddy John Clark from NBC Sports Philadelphia, caught one of those on video. And I'm like, I looked at it and I said, all right, first of all, it's practice, you're not going to 1,000,000%. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. That's fine. But then I get home and and I'm like, Dr. Chow says, no question he's favoring his left knee, 100%. And Chase Daniels out there saying, oh, that's not good. Guy who played the position. I know Eagles fans don't like him. Ironically, he's a former Eagle, but
Right.
I don't think he's shitting on Jalen Hurts. He's just saying it's not right. And these are guys that obviously would know. So I know Dr. Chow said that they have this he works for something called Sports Injury Central. So these 100% doesn't exist. These numbers are all made up, even by doctors. These numbers are all made up. I mean, you do have some tests and they can gauge do the data where you start and where you're actually at 82% of whatever. And that's what he put him at, 82%. So take it for what you will.
82%. And then the last one I want to get the update on, John, is Quinyon Mitchell. I feel pretty good about him and where he is this week. But just give me the update real quick for the benefit of Birds 365 viewers.
Yeah, Quinyon was a full participant. And, the thing with it's more interesting to me what happened last week with Quinyon, because it was so weird. They remove him from the game. He gets X-rays, doesn't come back, and he's in the locker room and he seems fine. So I don't know what happened, but he was a full participant. So I don't, of all four players we talked about, I have the least concern over Quinyon Mitchell, and that's Cam Jurgens, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts. He's definitely going to play. I guess if you get hit on the button, so to speak, in the same part of the shoulder, maybe that could be an issue, but he's certainly going to play. And I haven't seen any evidence that he's concerned about, making it through the game.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. We're going to dive into some more topics around this football game. Obviously, one that came out yesterday. I didn't make much of it, but it sends everybody into a tizzy. It didn't bother me at all what the Commanders' defensive coordinator said, Joe Witt. He said, if Jalen Hurts is going to run, we're going to hit him like a running back. And I'm like, sounds about right to me, right, John? That's football.
And Nick kind of Nick got asked that. It's like, boy, there's some things that I'm just, and I talk about the over legislated nature of the NFL all the time. Like, I think nobody understands the rules. When you're a running back, you're a running back. When you're a runner, you have protection in the pocket.
Right.
The problem becomes, and this is why I always lean towards defenders. Okay. It doesn't matter if they're on the Eagles or somewhere else. The problem is when they throw the flag when quarterbacks are runners. That's the problem. If they're runners, now sliding is something completely different because
Right.
they're giving themselves up, and that's the rule. And then it's a bang, bang, 50-50, and you can make an argument either way. And it generally depends on who your favorite team is. But but running backs can do that as well. Wide receivers can do that as well. Sometimes you even see it where the wide receiver sees he can't get any more yards and he gets down. And the play's supposed to be over. But I don't think a lot of people understand. If you are running the football, you have no extra protection as a quarterback. I'm not saying, and then people bring up Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying they don't give deference to superstar players, because they do. And that ain't right. And I'm with people with that. But when you do not have extra protection as a quarterback, as a runner. I don't think most people understand that by the rules. You do not. So nothing, you can get upset at you. I don't know why, but that's what you're supposed to do. And that's part of the reason why you have this give and take of how much do you want the quarterback to run the football? Because if they're running the football, it's supposed to be fair game. So, no, there is nothing wrong with what he said. And Nick Sirianni, by the way, agreed with that. And the same thing with Jaden Daniels, who can run the football.
Right, that's what I was about to say.
The Eagles are treating him like a running back.
Wouldn't you want to crack Jaden Daniels if he tries to run on you?
They should, and they will. As Zach Ball did on the 4th down here in the first game. Leveled them. It's exactly what you should do.
Right. All right, now let me give you another spin on this, all right? And I agree with everything we just said, by the way, you just said. Despite all that being true, and we all know it is true, obviously that's what they're going to try and do to Jalen Hurts. Is it savvy to put that out there in the media? What do they gain from putting that out there in the media? Just as another perspective,
here's the difference. He got asked the question. It's not like he's sitting up there pontificating. If you're asking me what I would have done, I would have done what I just done and said, well, he doesn't have any extra protection. So yeah, we're going to treat him like a running back and explain the rules to these morons who don't know the rules. No offense.
Exactly.
I'm talking more of the media people.
Yeah, I got you.
That's how I would have handled it. But, defensive coordinators are generally tough guys and blah, blah, blah. Vic didn't answer that question. Didn't get asked that question. Would have answered the same way, maybe a little bit better. So you can talk about how did he handle it? Should he? I just gave you my advice I would have given to him. If I'm the PR guy in Washington, I would have said, look, just say, well, he has no extra protection. So, yeah, we're going to treat him like a running back if he runs the football. Bang. I think that, but, that's, and some savvy media people are looking for that clip.
Right.
And
that's where I wonder if, what's the advantage as a defensive coordinator to put that out there? I'm not saying he's wrong, obviously, but why put it out there and then you have Eagles media who blows it all up?
I mean, you can argue that he should have handled it better. If you care. My estimation is he doesn't care. I don't know him, but that's my guess.
I know we don't love refs, but does that kind of stuff? I don't know. You get this in the media. And people, how people make headlines, John. Oh, they want to take out Jalen. Not what he said, but that's what people make a headline.
Oh, yeah.
And then you share that for 4 straight days leading up. And then the refs are like, hey, well, they're coming for Jalen Hurts. Boom, let me flip.
Well, if the refs do that, they suck. As people assume they suck anyway. I mean, the refs know the rules. And they should call the game. And it's a difficult game to call because of the over legislation. But yeah, it's not like every referee doesn't, and every official out there doesn't know these rules. They all know these rules. They all know quarterbacks don't have extra protections. I don't think they're going to be unduly influenced by anything like that. Here's the problem with officials, and you saw it last week with Devontae. What draws flags are big hits, or woo hits, as I like to call them. Like they got to get better with that stuff. Like I'm sorry, and I upset Eagles fans. A completely legal hit on DeVonta Smith last week. Completely legal hit, but it was a big hit in the middle of the field. What are you supposed to do as a defender? You can go to every game and people get upset. And when it's an Eagles defender, I say, nah,
Right.
that probably shouldn't have been a flag. When it's somebody
Oh, no,
else
that
now.
Devonta hit, it did look like the guy hit his helmet. Where I agree with you is I don't know what he could have done differently.
Incidental. He dipped his head because he's a human being
Yeah, it was.
trying to
Oh, I
catch a
believe it
football.
was definitely incidental.
He led with his shoulder. That was literally textbook of what they want them to do. What they want them to do. Now, if you're leaving your feet, here's another thing. People don't. There is no targeting rule in the NFL. That's a college rule. But it's just unnecessary roughness. So
that was unfortunate with where Devonta was in the air and the way he came down into that. Yeah.
So he's dipping his head because he's bracing for the hit. So it's incidental contact. But you know, that's where they should have the full-time sky judge and just say, look, pick up the flag, blah, blah, blah. Incidental, all that kind of stuff. But they don't. And they leave these things open. But when it's a big hit, and if you go back to New Orleans, remember that hit on DeVonta when he was trying to get extra yard? Even DeVonta said no, that was a legal hit. The problem is the guy who came in afterwards. Even DeVonta said that was.
Is that when Devontae's helmet got knocked off?
I don't remember if his helmet got knocked
off.
Yeah,
remember they were tackling him. They were almost dragging him backwards. And
they were dragging him backwards. And the officiating
got popped off.
And the officiating point there is they should have blown the whistle way before, when they didn't. So that was the big mistake from their perspective. But then somebody dived in, and I forget who it was after. Now he should have got flagged, and I think ultimately he did. If I recall, he certainly got fined. But yeah, even DeVonta said that was an illegal hit. So, it is what it is, but that's a long-winded saying. Most people don't understand the rules. So I don't know. And that's the NFL's fault because their rules are ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, it's like the tax code.
Right. Get a good accountant. That's all I'll say about the freaking tax code. All right, Johnny, man, I want to show all the people who are watching. So the AP award finalists that came out yesterday, well, the Philadelphia Eagles have quite a few of them. All right, let me show you guys who they are. All right, there's your look at it. All right, Saquon Barkley is your a finalist for the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year. Zach Bond is a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Quinyon and Cooper are both finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And Vic Fangio is a finalist for Assistant Coach of the Year. Now, John, there is one thing about this entire graphic that all of these people share, okay? Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, they all are first-year Eagles.
There you go, baby. I mean, that's a hell of a – right there, that's all Howie Roseman needs to show to potentially have a shot at Executive of the Year. Those are all first-year players or coaches here in the city of brotherly love. What a great impact by the offseason additions this year, John, from Howie. I got to tip the cap here, man. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of impressive. Obviously, to go where they're on the precipice of going, it's always that it's not going to win it. Brad Holmes won it in the PFWA. I expect Brad to win it. But he had a good offseason. And then there's stuff that obviously you'd want back. That's everything. I mean, people forget, until the season is over and if it ends in a negative direction. But if you win, yeah, obviously there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good. There's also the Bryce ups and I imagine, excuse me. I imagine Kellen Moore will be back in the good graces if the Cowboys hire Brian Schottenheimer. But really, that hasn't worked out as planned.
What do you think of that Schottenheimer?
Yeah, good luck. That's what I would say.
We'll see.
I don't know.
I try not to write people off before they
No,
have a chance
I
to prove themselves, but yeah.
same man.
That's it.
Now,
It's
Liam Cohen, if you look at Jacksonville, look, it's more about you look at the situation and you look at how that unfurled and you say, that's just a bad organization. So I'm trying to, I don't know the guy from Adam, but, making him like he's out like some kind of superstar, turnaround. There's just a bad organization. And I love Tony Khan, but I mean, they're just a bad organization. So, the way that unfurled was it just looks unprofessional, but from both sides.
Yeah,
he's going back. He tells Tampa he's going back, and then he Josh McDaniels them. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
Dude, with a $4.5 million contract on the table, just communicate. Just freaking communicate. I didn't understand.
Yeah, then he kind of ghost them.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Like that's like what young people that don't like confrontation do.
Right.
Not that anybody should like confrontation, but sometimes
confrontation is necessary in life.
It's certainly in business. It certainly is necessary in life. And that's just unprofessional.
No doubt about it. Good stuff,
yeah,
Johnny Mac. All right, John, we're gonna
to your point, especially when they're agreed to pay him $4.5 million.
Yeah,
and being the top paid, along with Vic Fangio, the top paid coordinator in football.
You got to give him the courtesy of a phone call. I mean, forget confrontation. How about the courtesy of
a
freaking phone call?
He's like a teen. Like a teen girl.
Wait, so when there was something else that came out though last night. Now I don't think it's going to develop this way. I think it does seem like Cohen's going to end up being their coach there. But it came out last night that Salah was flying in again for another interview, and I'm like, oh my god, they didn't just pull a Liam Cohen on Liam Cohen, did they? And they were going to.
Yeah, I think he was the backup plan. I think Robert Salah.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you this, and I don't think Robert Salah did a good job with the Jets. But again, bad organization. You never know how much of it is. I
kind of like Robert Salah. I don't know why I like him, but I do like him.
I know Eagles fans didn't like him when he was in the press box the other week, but they spotted him and said some untoward things. But
why do they have a problem with Robert Salah, Eagles fans?
I have no idea because they spotted him.
Did he do something? Did I miss something? What happened to Robert Salah? I thought he was a good coach. I like him.
Yeah, he was a consultant.
I guess he was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco?
Well, no. He was I'm talking about Green Bay.
Yeah, this year that happened. That happened like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. He's a consultant. He was a consultant for Green Bay, and he was sitting in the press box, and they spotted him after the Eagles had essentially secured the game. Very, just a couple fans. It's not everybody.
Yeah, and they start. He says we don't hate him. He was just there, and he isn't on our team. Yeah, so fuck him.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those deals. So it was bald MF or sort of like a Larry David type thing, to the point some of the Green Bay writers were screaming at the fans to shut. It was kind of amusing, but perfect indication of why people don't like coming to Philadelphia.
Good stuff there. Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff. All right, Johnny Mac, here we go. I'm going to read a couple super chats I'll get to in just a second. We're going to get our commercial break here in a little bit. We're going to talk to Les Bowen in hour number 2. So looking forward to talking to Les Bowen in hour number 2 when he joins us on the show. I do want to ask, though, John, just a couple days out now here from this game, what sticks out to you as some key factors? You kind of gave a good synopsis of it at the open of the show today, where what'd you say, paralysis by over-analysis. You don't want to get into that territory, but just the simple keys to the game that stick out to you in this game 3 days out.
Well, a lot of it, is going to depend on how healthy Jalen Hurts is. So I've talked about that from the start. I mean, that's something we won't know, to be honest, until game day. How much is on the plate for him. And I think from Washington's standpoint, it becomes the job of Bobby Wagner, who, is going to play, and Frankie Luvu to assess that pretty quickly. Is the +1 aspect of the running game involved? Is it not involved? If it's not involved, then I think they completely sell out to stop Saquon Barkley like they did in the second half of the game down there.
Right.
And they were pretty effective doing it. So I think that's the plan for Washington. And then, can the passing game get going? We've been having that discussion all season.
Yeah.
For the Washington offense, it's going to be interesting how they deal with the absence of Sam Cosme, because and that's part of the thing. Even with Sam Cosme, you expect Jalen Carter to have a big game against this team. And now it's probably going to be Trent Scott, who isn't really a tackle playing guard. Yeah, that does not look like a good matchup. So you're going to have to slide.
This is not like the way. This is not like moving Jordan Mailata over to playing guard.
No.
This is a guy who doesn't play a lot of tackle. He's a reserve tackle kind of guy, and now he's playing guard. So that's not going to be good for him going up against Jalen Carter. Let's call a spade on that.
Yeah, and then it becomes on Cliff Kingsbury, and how are you going to deal with that? I imagine they're going to move the pocket. They have a quarterback where they could certainly move the pocket, try to take advantage. You think about over the years how the Eagles have taken advantage at times of great pass rushers. Von Miller, most notably, Micah Parsons at times. Sometimes you can use their aggression against them, and sort of trap them to going up the field and running right behind it, or doing something behind it. So, I mean, that's up to Cliff Kingsbury, but he's certainly got the quarterback to do it. He can move wherever he wants to move.
Yep.
So we'll see how they handle it, but I do think their whole week basically is figuring out how the hell are we going to block Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I think probably the better game plan for them is just tell Jaden to roll out. I mean, how many times are we going to see Jaden roll out in this game? I think it's going to be a lot because Jalen Carter is going to be wreaking havoc on that interior all game.
Yeah, well, Nick says it all the time with Micah. If you can't block him, read him. That's easier on the edge, obviously. But it's similar. If you can't block him, you got to do something else. And they know they can't block him. So how are they going to handle it? And you look at how some of the teams, including the Eagles, who have had the most success against Aaron Donald in his illustrious career. One of the things I always respect about Jason Kelsey is that, like, very similar to Vic Fangio, he'll always tell you the truth. And he gets mad when, not mad, but, a lot of people like to say, well, the Eagles never gave up a sack to Aaron Donald and blah, blah, blah. And Kelsey will tell the story. He's told it on his podcast. He's like, you don't know what we did to not give up a sack against Aaron Donald.
Right.
I mean, there was not one play on purpose that we didn't have an extra body or two directed toward him. So, that's pretty much, and I don't like to compare anybody to Aaron Donald, but that's pretty much what Washington is going through right now, trying to figure out how they're going to make sure that Jalen Carter doesn't wreck this game, because he could wreck this game.
Yeah, and that could mean that the other guys on that defensive line will have a lot of chances at some one-on-ones and can make a play too. Milton Williams, by the way, Nolan Smith, who's been really playing well in the playoffs. I was watching, John, they put out a mic'd up yesterday with Jalen. It was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't talk much in the game, so there's not much mic'd up from Jalen, out there. You could tell he started talking a little bit more in the fourth quarter. The only thing that changed was he popped up Parker, whatever it was he took for that knee, and he maybe loosened up a little bit.
There's a lot of Reddit Discord conspiracies about.
Yeah, I'm not going down that road. But anyway, I'll say this: there was one moment in the mic'd up segment that the Eagles put out that got me fired up for multiple reasons. The sack that Jalen Carter had on Matthew Stafford, where he picked him up. All right. Now, I don't know what they called on the defensive line, but when they got back to the bench, that was a third down sack. Jalen Carter looked at Nolan Smith and said, "Thank you for trusting me." And Nolan clapped back at him and said, "Don't ever say that shit. If you feel it, you call it, and I'm going to do it with you." It was really dope. But my point was, they're really feeding off one another right now. Now, obviously, they go back to Georgia. I don't know what they called in that moment. Maybe, Nolan comes this way so that Jalen can go around the back
basically
of the
just
or whatever. But
basically
they're playing right now really well, and I think they're complimenting each other really well. And Nolan's done a really good job.
Yeah, it's just a stunt, and they do have a history together, so maybe they're a little bit ahead of the game from the chemistry. We always talk about chemistry on the offensive line. Chemistry is a big thing with the pass rush. I go back to that Cam Jordan clip, which I hope you retweeted to people. A big thing with pass rush. Jim Schwartz would stress this all the time. Big stresses it all the time. You don't just wide nine it, Jason Babbitt style.
Right.
It's got to be a group effort, especially against a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, because if you're by yourself on the edge, for instance, and you're just going, "I'm going to go get the quarterback," and you got same man coverage behind, and all of a sudden you're running past the quarterback because you're selfish looking for a sack. And you lose contain, and all of a sudden he's running up the back of the defensive backs for 20, 30 yards. So, the fact that those guys have known each other, Jordan Davis as well, obviously, and N'Kobe when he's healthy, and means a lot. Means a lot. And they, the trust that they have in each other means a lot.
No doubt about it. I'm going to get to the super chats in just a second, John. One other question on this game, and we've talked about this before, but I do want to get into it here on the Football Friday because I do think it's one of the key pieces of the offensive game plan and play calling and everything coming in. How will the Eagles' play calling adapt if Jalen Hurts' mobility is reduced? And I'd put the site here on Kellen Moore that you want to obviously that has to change.
The play calling
Jalen can't run. I'm just saying, do you have to agree though? You have to call a slightly different game if Jalen can't run well?
In theory. But, I do think the Eagles have a lot of confidence in their running game. And they're not afraid of extra people in the box. So I think they're going to try to run the ball, certainly with a limited quarterback. And then if that doesn't work, then it becomes, can you turn on the light switch? And you got to get the passing game on. But I think it starts with what they are as a team. I would always yell at Penn State fans. I tell that story all the time. Crapping on James Franklin for the game with Trace McSorley, and I think it was Miles Sanders. And it was a 4th and 4 or something, and they ran a zone read. And I see all these Penn State. Well, you gotta be more creative. You gotta be more creative. It's not who they are. It's not what they practice.
Right.
You don't just run zone read for 10, 13 weeks, whatever it was, and then show up with Bill Walsh playbook and say, "Oh, let's run this. Let's run these creative route concepts that everybody thinks they understand." It doesn't work that way. You practice what you're good at, and you do. And the Eagles have pretty much, we're at 19 games now. They are what they are. You're not going to see Bill Walsh.
John is just pouring water on my.
Well, I'm not picking on you. I mean, what?
No,
what
I know. I'm
expect?
just saying in general. I'm dreaming. I'm like, all right, Jalen. All right, banged up knee. It's all going to be all right. 2-step drop. Get that ball out quick. Big game for AJ. Big game for Devontae.
The closest thing was 2017, but a lot of people bring because they completely revamped the offense. But the difference there, they did it over multiple weeks, number one. But the difference there was they scaled it back. They didn't evolve it. They scaled it back.
Right.
To take advantage of what Nick was comfortable with. You could scale it back further. You're not going to turn into Bill Walsh in 1 week where you barely practice, by the way, because the quarterback's not healthy.
Last question here before our first commercial break. Jaden Daniels is coming in, John. What are you doing to try and slow down this rookie who seems like he's been unfazed by every single moment of the year? And we lost Celia yesterday with the power, so we didn't have a Celia show. So I was on live, and I brought some people on, and we talked about the game a little bit. And somebody was floating out that they think, okay, the pressure is here now, and just because you haven't seen him burst doesn't mean he couldn't turn into Darnold. And I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see this kid bursting under pressure at all.
Sam. Poor Sam, number one, but go ahead.
Well, listen, he turned it, John. He didn't help himself with the pumpkin-ass performance of the last 2 weeks of the season. So I hear you, but shoot, Darnold did not help himself out at all. But what do you got here with Jaden Daniels, man? What are you doing as coming up against a rookie who's really a rookie sensation, the way he's playing? He's really a good quarterback. Yeah, what are you doing to kind of come in and throw him off?
I think we're at the paralysis by overanalysis standpoint. Like, I don't think it's about Jaden Daniels. Like I said, if you look at all the quarterbacks in the divisional round, with the exception of Patrick Mahomes, and they're mainly veteran quarterbacks, the most calm, collected, poised was Jaden Daniels in a very difficult environment. Very difficult environment. So I'm not worried about his poise. I'm not worried about his bubble bursting. I'm not worried about him turning into a pumpkin. Doesn't mean he can't have a bad game. People will say he turned into a pumpkin. Doesn't mean he had a bad game. It probably means that Jalen Carter wrecked the game. That's what it probably means. From Tom Brady on down, the easiest way to affect a quarterback is pressure right up the middle.
Yep.
Right up the middle. From Tom Brady on down. So, if you go to Super Bowl, whatever it was, where the 9-7 Giants beat the undefeated Patriots, did Tom Brady turn into a pumpkin? Some people could say that. Some people will say that. I mean, sometimes you got to tip your cap to the other team and point out whether it's shitty offensive line play, great defensive line play, what have you. But he's already proven himself when it comes to the poise category.
Yes, no doubt.
I don't think he's going to show up. Very similar to what I said about the Eagles offense. In 1 week, I don't think he's going to lose his poised nature. Doesn't mean he can't have a bad game, but I don't think it's going to have anything to do with poise or turning into a pumpkin. I think it's going to do with the Eagles defense, and if they
what
can
do they have to do?
get
Pinch the edges and pinch the edges, try and keep them in the pocket and rely on Carter to get pressure.
You got to be very disciplined in the pass rush. You got to. I expect this to be a big zone game. For some reason, they went away from it. Not, they never go away from it, but they in the first game they played a ton of zone. In the second game, they played to the lesser level of what they usually do. And they create a lot of turnovers in that second game. So there's a give and take, but I expect them to play a ton of zone because they don't want them running up the back of the defensive backs. Like I said, they want everybody with their eyes on them. and then it becomes keep them in the pocket, very disciplined rush, and speeding them up. Make him throw before he wants to throw.
Yeah.
Agreed. So in the last play of the game, last real play of the game against the Rams, that never had a chance because Jalen Carter sped up Matthew Stafford. Never had a chance. And when you speed up a quarterback as a defense, good things generally happen, whether it's incompletions or even bigger plays like turnovers.
Good stuff there, John. Let's get to a couple super chats, and then we'll get to our first commercial break. Man in Black checks in. What's up, brother? Good to see you in here. If the Bills DC said that about Mahomes in same words, refs would have 20 flags loaded in the
Go with the Mahomes. Jesus Christ. Get over Mahomes. Worry about Mahomes when you're playing Mahomes.
Oh, Man in Black. That's a very Man in Black comment right there. 20 flags loaded in the waistband is hilarious.
And I'm going to go under with 20 flags. How's that?
Gerard says, what's up, Gerard Horsey? Good to see you, man. Can Nolan Smith be Hassan or better? I think he can be. I think he has that type of upside for sure.
Come on.
Not right now. I'm saying in his career, I could see that for him.
Hassan of 2022, no. Hassan of
Hassan's Reddick career isn't based on 22.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what Eagles fans are thinking. I mean, I could be wrong. Hassan Reddick overall,
but if he can be in that level of player category where you range, 12, 13, 14, whatever it is, sacks a year, that's what I think Nolan can be.
Yeah, I think he could do that. But again, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think people are thinking of Hassan Reddick 2022, who is in that specific season one of the greatest defensive years an Eagles player has ever had. That I don't see.
Yeah, that's a historic season. Yeah. Brian Pumper checks in. What's up, Brian? Fellas, the Juergens injury came out of left field. Is this a Vegas thing, or does Roger Goodell have beef jerky in his Diddy dungeon? Known freak. Oh, God, Pumper. I will say this, though. The Juergens injury did come out of left field. We talked about that last night. He played the final snap of the game last week. I didn't see anything.
Hey, backs are backs, man. You can hurt yourself shoveling snow.
Yep.
You can hurt yourself picking up snow at the link and charging $50 for it.
Yeah, maybe Jergy got home from the game and had to shovel snow, John. Maybe that's where it happened.
I mean, I said how many times I say these guys are human beings. They have lives. They have to do things. Like Kellen Moore was telling the story about what his interviews and blah blah blah, and he missed his his kid's 4th grade basketball game. They have lives. Anybody who's had a back injury knows, that stuff can crop up, and football players, a lot of times, I go back to Tim Jernigan. It's the weight room, and he was out for basically almost a year. When you're throwing around that kind of weight, offensive linemen throw around, it could be anything. But by no means am I trying to say that that's what's going on, that it's serious with Cam Juergens. I haven't gotten that sense. But as far as a 1-2 week injury, whatever, a lot of ways. And eventually, Cam's honest. He'll tell us what happened when we eventually get to talk to him. But he's injured, so he hasn't been in the locker room.
Good stuff. Bobby Murphy checks in. What's up, Bobby? One game away from a Super Bowl, like him or not. Any Eagles fan worth a F needs to ride or die with Hurts. Talking to YouTube Pumper, FJD. That's fair. I mean, that's where we're at right now in this season. I think that's fair.
Well, I'm not going to gauge what Eagles fans should do and shouldn't do, but I mean, he deserves credit, no doubt about it. I mean, guy wins games, does win games.
No doubt.
But the organization wins games.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Sirianni deserves credit. Jalen Hurts deserves. Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, on down.
Scott Squad says, if Jaden is poised, then what is Hurts?
Jalen's very poised.
Yeah, I think they're both poised.
Very poised.
Scott, I've been saying all week, dude, this kid reminds me of Jalen Hurts in a way. Not the same style of play, but the way he can escape from a pass rush. The way he's just calm under pressure. The only thing I think he's got an advantage in is I think he's got a little bit of he's a little bit more talented in the arm. I mean, he can throw the ball, man, really freaking well. So
yeah, Nick got asked about those two, and that's what he said. He reminded him how poised Jalen is. That's the first place he went with it. Typically, when people talk about Jaden Daniels, they go to the athletic traits. Nick went straight to the poise.
Love it. Good stuff there. Scott, appreciate it. Macalia, what's up, brother? Good to have you in here. The Eagles seem to do better when they run hurry-up offense, so why don't they start out that way?
Yeah, good question. That's what I've been asking
Yeah.
for weeks.
The only quarterback who's better in up-tempo offense this year is who?
I don't know.
Jaden Daniels. Him and Jalen Hurts are two of the two
They
that
do
are,
it a lot too, but
yeah.
I think
Their rate of it is way higher, John. Somebody put out a graph last night where you could, let me see if I can find that real quick, but go ahead.
I think all quarterbacks are better in tempo. I think Chip Kelly was on to something. Now the problem is, and Bill Belichick did this best with Tom Brady, of course. Bill Belichick was a big fan of Chip Kelly and really liked his tempo approach and really liked a lot of things Chip did. He was at even though he doesn't get credit for it because he's a bit of a tool, he was at the ground floor of a lot of the changes in offensive football. But he didn't have a filter. Like, he was just go, 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 no matter what. And Belichick would pick his brain and love to pick his brain about the tempo stuff, but he was smart enough to put the filter on it, and he had the ultimate filter in Tom Brady. So if you go back to those Patriot teams, post when he learned the tempo stuff from Chip, they were the best at putting the foot on the gas, taking it off, managing games at the end. They were the best at it. So much good comes from tempo. You don't allow, it's become a situational game. You don't allow substitution from the defense. So you can define, like if you have a group on the field that you like a matchup with, you can keep them on the field if you want as an offense by running tempo. Now you can't do it all the time, especially if you have veteran players. Offensive linemen are going to get tired. And that's where the filter comes into it. But around the league, I think with the good teams, you see they're very good when they use tempo. Almost everybody. And there's something to that. And it certainly includes the Eagles.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll show everybody this graph. I saw that. I don't know, John, I'll let you break it down. Maybe it doesn't mean as much as I thought. This is a graph of most efficient quarterbacks in no huddle. And you can see the left side is the no huddle rate. So Jaden Daniels is way at the top. They're running no huddle a lot. And then the bottom is EPA per dropback. So you can see Jalen Hurts is on there. He's got a pretty good spot on there. I just wish they ran it more. Jaden Daniels is a little bit less efficient, but they run it so damn much that they're getting, I think, more advantage out of it.
Yeah, the Eagles, it tends to do positive things for the Eagles, but you do have to, you can't just do it all the time. But,
Right.
I do think there's, and Kellen it's say, hey, look, first thing, you got to get a first down to run temp. It's like, it's great. You saw it with Chip.
Right.
If you're 3 and out in 15 seconds, you're really putting your defense. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but the Eagles have been very, very good with it this year.
Yeah, no doubt. McAlee, good question, man. I appreciate you. One of our new legend members. Thanks for being a member, man. I appreciate your support. Scott Squad checks in. Bond been good, but Dean has been just as good. Yeah, well, Dean's out. Now we got no Dean.
N'Kobe has been very good this year, but no, he has not been as good as Zach Bond. Zach Bond is, again, he's a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm telling
a
you,
worthy,
John, I listen to him.
A worthy finalist for defense.
It's funny listening to him. Like, he got asked about that, and he's like, "This was nowhere in the realm."
Yeah, he admitted.
My goals.
Well, he was talking about the Pro Bowl. He's like, he laughed at his contract. It had a Pro Bowl incentive in it, and he's like, "Why is this here?" We laughed about it. Yeah, I mean, he's been an amazing story. Legitimate. He's not going to win it, so don't get yourself excited. But he's going to be he's going to be top 5. Well, here he is, top 5. He's one of the finalists. I voted for him. I'll tell you where after NFL honors, and there's no doubt he's been one of the 5 best defensive players in football. No doubt.
No doubt at all.
Kobe's had a great season. But he's not even one of the 5 best linebackers in football. Great season, probably top 15, I would say. Phenomenal season. But Zach Bond has been off the charts good.
Charles Menifee checks in. What's up, Charles? Who benefits more from limited possessions?
Of these two teams, I would think the Eagles. Yeah,
me too.
yeah. But a lot of possessions means one of two things: a lot of scoring or a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, and look at how that played out last time that happened.
Yeah. To me, Washington's going to have to score a lot of points to win this game.
I agree. Charles, thank you, man. Appreciate that. One more super chat, then we'll get to our commercial break here. An hour deep. We'll have an hour left to play here, and we have Les Bowen coming up at 9:20. Looking forward to talking to him. Matt NG says, I think JD is great. Reminds me of Derrick Rose when he came into the NBA because of his size and play style. Do you question his durability? Jalen is a shit brick house and seems to always get hurt.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, seems like every year too, it's late with Jalen Hurts, which is hurt in the playoffs. Tampa, the first year, he got hurt in Chicago when they made the run, so they were able to persevere that. Last year, again, it was a finger, I think, and an ankle. Every year, and this year it's the knee. And he is a brick shit house. So, yeah, Jaden, I mean, you look at him, I guess a little bit, but we went through this with Devontae Smith, who's like, and he's been so durable. Missed a little bit of time this year, but he's been so durable, and he looks like a toothpick out there. And you worry for his, when you see all these giant guys,
yeah,
you worry about it. I mean, Lamar Jackson, same way. You don't get hit, so I don't know. And Josh Allen's on the other end of the spectrum. He's so reckless. I can't believe that guy doesn't get hurt. He throws his body around like a lunatic. And he hasn't gotten hurt.
6'5".
Yeah, he's huge. So,
he's freaking.
But even I mean, those guys get hurt all the time. And Zach Ertz is coming in.
Josh Allen's a little bit of a different breed, though, and I think he's proven that with the way he hasn't gotten hurt.
And Zach Ertz is the first one who I heard it from, but a lot of people say it. But if you play long enough, you're going to get hurt, 100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just the game. It's a violent
Good stuff.
game.
Good stuff, Matt. Thanks for the super chat, bro. I appreciate that. Appreciate everybody checking in today. Good to have everybody in the chat. Got a big crowd in here. Over 1,000 watching, 650 on YouTube, and almost 500 on all of our other platforms. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Hit that like button if you're in the show. We should have a good amount of likes. It's a football Friday before an NFC title game. So hit that like button. We'll be right back here on Birds 365. Les Bowen is coming up in hour number 2. Before I get to the break, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out. Who's betting on the game this weekend? Last I checked, the spread on BetUS was 6. All right, that seems like a little bit of a big number for me. I don't know if I'm laying 6 in this game. We'll give you guys our score predictions at the end of the game. But if you're taking a bet, I'd go with Saquon Barkley, right? I mean, I don't know. I like Saquon Barkley to run all over this team again. His over-under is like 130, which is one of the highest ever for a running back. So pretty crazy what he's done. But go check him out. Use the promo code YouTube150, and you get 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. We'll be right back on Birds 365 in 3 minutes.